G'day, everyone. Welcome to another Turn Under podcast, the Southern Hemisphere's biggest and best podcast. All things Newcastle United. If it sounds like we're flat, it's because we are. We're not going to sugarcoat it. Pretty devastating result this morning. Newcastle 1, AC Milan 2, which seen us crash out of Europe altogether. So it wasn't the greatest morning, not the greatest day, Mark, but it's good to have you on to, I guess, dissect it a little bit.
Yeah, not exactly the start to the day that we're all hoping for. That's for sure. I think we all went into this full of hope and what ifs and could be's, and looked so promising for so long. But yeah, rug pulled from out from under our feet yet again. It is a Newcastle fan's lot in life, it would seem.
Yeah, it wasn't. I don't think it. The result wasn't the thing. It was, I think, the way it happened.
Yeah,
That was the gut punch. So, well, what are we? We're a little more than probably 12 hours on, or not quite 12 hours on here. How have you landed on it today?
look, I mean, it was 6 a.m. Start, 6 a.m. kickoff for us here in Brisbane. So that would have been what, 7 for you.
7 a.m., which was great.
Yeah. So it's nice. It was a nice early kickoff for us in terms of having a sensible time to be able to watch the match. So I guess thankfully for small mercies on that one. I was pretty knackered. So look, I was ropeable when the final whistle went. I admit I switched the broadcast off a few minutes before the final whistle. I'd had enough. Couldn't handle all of that. So yeah, not exactly the game that we were hoping. I think the game itself, and we'll probably get to that, it was actually not too bad. But the result was just this gut punch. I went back to bed for an hour's sleep, got up, felt a little bit better about myself. I kind of reconciled the result, reconciled the fact that there are some upsides to this, even though it doesn't seem like it at the time. And I'm sure we'll go through that. But look, I've put my Newcastle shirt on. Solidarity with the boys. Look, still immensely proud of every single person that's associated with that club at the moment to get where we've been and to put up the performances that we have. Yeah, look, we fell at the last hurdle, but group of death, no one expected us to do much. So we'll take that and run with it into the future.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the whole group of death catchphrase because unfortunately we were the ones that got buried. So, I think the best way to go about this is we won't sugarcoat it or dance around it. We'll get straight to the meat and potatoes and thrash it out. Then we'll try and finish on a bit more of a positive note and finish and put this thing behind us and think about some good stuff. So, first question I've got for you, Mark, is what went wrong?
If I knew that, I'd probably be in Eddie Howe's shoes and making a lot more money than I am at the moment.
You might have a nice shade of varnish as well.
Yeah. Look, it's difficult to say as fans, but we try and do our own dissection of games after things like that happen. I think we started so well. We were clearly the better side for the first half. It looks for all intents and purposes that we just ran out of legs. We made some substitutions, but taking Trippier off, bringing Dan Burn on, taking Miley off, who was actually having a pretty good game, taking Gordon off to bring Isak on, to keep Wilson on, who didn't really do much. Longstaff, who's short of game time at the moment as well. Look, I think there was just AC Milan had more up their sleeve, and their substitute scored just after he came on while we looked like we were tiring. So substitution's probably not the best. I think our early game plan was to get on top of them and get on top of them early, try and put the game to bed. We didn't. Not for the lack of trying, but we needed that extra goal. If we got into the second half 2 goals up, I think it probably would have been a different game. But it is ifs, buts, and maybes. And for me, it was a leggy performance yet again. And I think we still have that lack of big game mentality as well. I think we are still growing into that confidence within ourselves as a football club that we belong where we are and we're going to be able to hold on to games like that. We've seen us give games away against Liverpool late on when the stakes are high. So look, for me, it's a multitude of issues going on that saw that game finish the way it did. But I think, yeah, tired legs and heaped on pressure to the players, I think probably undid us in the end.
Yeah, it's interesting with the subs because from what I've kind of been, I was too busy at work to kind of do the whole social media reaction, hot take, clout post, whatever you want to call it. But I have caught up a little bit with some of what Eddie Howe said. So he did mention that Trippier and Gordon both were substituted off. They were forced in a way, so they weren't tactical. I mean, why would you
No.
take off two of your best players? Because that doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't matter who you're bringing on. If you're taking them two players off, they're definitely not going to be of the quality to what they were. So we're lucky that Trippier is suspended, I think, for the weekend. So he gets another week with Chelsea midweek next week to hopefully get over an issue. And I think Gordon's, he said he felt his hamstring tighten up a little bit. And I can't remember what game it was, but the one he got substituted off might have been the Man United game, actually, that he said he felt the same thing. So I think that was more of a precaution thing because we can't really afford to lose
No, for
anyone
sure.
else, even with Byrne and Longstaff and Wilson all coming back in the last kind of 3 or 4 days. But I think, and this is probably the biggest topic, I guess, and the biggest discussion point out of the game, the Champions League experience, I guess, if that's what you want to call it, is that whether it was a premeditated decision or it was a decision made in game, but the facts are that Eddie and the coaching staff went chips in on the Champions League. So we
It,
were fine at 1-1, and I think we probably had enough to see the game out and land in the Europa League come February next year when the European stuff kicks off. But that's not the way they wanted to go, and he's admitted as much after the game that he felt he'd be doing the players a disservice if they didn't try and stay in the Champions League. So, I mean, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. So, does he have to accept responsibility for us not being in Europe altogether?
yes and no. I think Eddie Howe, we've seen, there's games where we've said, look, he probably wants to throw this game and get out of the cup competition last year, and we ended up making the final. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure he wanted to stay in the FA Cup last season. He's not a manager that's going to go into any game going, well, you know what, if this is a free hit, if we don't get anything out of this, then so be it. He goes out with the mentality of winning every single game that he plays, that we play. So you've got to ask a little bit about, and I brought this up straight after I kind of had settled my temper tantrum first thing. When I had a little bit of time to reflect, it's like that was the one thing. It seemed like it was this chips all in, it's Champions League or bust, and that there is probably going to be times where that mentality pays off for us, and there's going to be times like today where it didn't. As fans, look, it's the long-term game. I think it's very easy to get caught up in the moment, but you've got to keep remembering that we're 2 years into what was deemed a 5-year project for rebuilding the football club. We're massively ahead of schedule to even be in the Champions League. So, look, I think the extra money, the prestige of making the knockout stages of the Champions League probably were a big carrot. You've got to wonder what sort of pressure the ownership was putting on the manager to keep in the Champions League. We don't know behind the scenes. If we qualified for the Champions League, then it was what I think we were talking about $13-15 million, 13 or 15 million pounds worth of extra cash that we were going to end up with. You have to go all the way and win the Europa League to get like 8 million. So that was like load more games on the schedule, which we are already struggling with. So maybe it was literally look, let's go all in to stay in the Champions League. We've got benefits from that. It gets financial incentive to do that. But if we go out and we crash out of Europe altogether, then we know we ease our schedule somewhat. We can concentrate on the domestic cups because we don't not have those European trips anymore, and maybe start to push up the league a little bit more and try and secure a European spot for next season from our league position as well. So there's a load of factors. I don't think it's just down to Eddie Howe making a call that, you know, we're going to go in and it's Champions League or bust, you know, shit or bust mentality. I think he does have that sort of thing where, you know, we're going to give it our all and we're going to try and win whatever game we go out to. But, you know, look, I've got no complaints at going for it. It's very easy sitting here in our offices and in chairs at home saying, well, you know what, yeah, we could have just seen that out and at least we would have had some European football. Personally, reflecting back on it, I think maybe in the future, maybe Eddie Howe makes a slightly different call and tries to maintain that. But for right here and right now, the fewer games was or the extra money were probably the two weighed up options, and he's gone for it. As you said, you know, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. You go for it. Some of the time that's going to come off. You got to take the times that it doesn't on the chin and look forward to the next opportunity.
Yeah, and I mean, what do you think? So, hypothetically speaking, when this whole thing sort of fires up again in February, touch wood, we don't have any more injuries. I think we'll have most of our players, our injured players at least, back then. So, is it a good thing that we're not in Europa League and focus on the league, or is it a bad thing because we'll have hopefully the squad depth to manage these extra games again? Because I think that's been one of the biggest issues that we've faced, especially in this campaign, is our horrific luck with injuries and the inability, I guess, to change the team around and things like that.
Yeah, it's one of those things for me where you'd like to have those games because of the extra prestige and the chance to win a cup. I mean, for me, I think Craig was asking early on in the group chat, you know, what would you prefer? Oh no, it was Dimmy, wasn't it? What would you prefer?
Yeah.
A win against Chelsea or to rest players and kind of concentrate on the league? To me, I just want to win a cup. I just want to win some silverware. I want to see us win something. For me, you know, go all in on Chelsea. And you know, yeah, you want to have those European nights. It doesn't matter whether it's against some minnows. I guess in the dropout stages, you're probably still going to have some decent clubs in there. Probably a competition that we would be within the sort of like the clubs that are talked about as potential winners. So yes, there is that opportunity, but look, we've got 2 domestic cups. We've got the league competition to play. So I don't think we're going to be short on games. Touch wood, as long as we beat Sunderland. I'm not going to miss the extra games. I think we want to go hard. Having less fixtures to me means that our players can go harder and we can be that, you know, intensity as our identity kind of club again, because we have those players that we can swap in and out, and we can rotate the squad for the rest of the season. I'm not going to lose any sleep over not being in the Europa League. It would have been nice to have some European football, but no, for me, not going to lose any sleep over it.
All right, now what you said is great, and I agree with a lot of what you said. But this is an individual question. With the 60th minute, when the scores were tied at 1-1, what would you have done? Would you have gone just played the same way, I guess? And if we nick one, great. I'd back us not to concede another one. If we draw, I'm happy with Europa League. Or you were chips in like Eddie, and I'd rather live on my feet than die on my knees kind of guy.
I was hoping we would score a second goal while we were 1-0 up and kind of then be able to manage the game out. Once they scored, I will hold my hands up. And I actually was thinking to myself, just take the draw, guaranteed European football. Let's just sort of like see this game out. Don't overstretch, because in the back of my mind, Newcastle being Newcastle and never wanting to do things easily, you knew that if we pushed forward and we were starting to look a bit tired around that 60th minute mark, It was definitely in the back of my mind that we were going to concede another if we started leaving ourselves open. And it was literally an end-to-end game at that point as well. Both
It
teams were
was.
going
That's what I
for it.
mean. There was
Yeah.
no dispute that we were trying to win the game.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
we weren't. There was no way we were settling for a draw, and we'll see what happens. Like,
Yeah.
it was crazy. Like, it was like you're 1-0 down in a final, and you needed to find a goal to get level and force extra time, but there was 20 minutes left still. Like, it was just mental.
Yeah. I mean, look, as I said before, the difference was we didn't have those players off the bench that could make a difference offensively.
100%.
And
Yeah.
that was where we fell down. You look at the likes. Well, I mean, as I said, AC Milan's substitute scored the winner. If we'd had a Harvey Barnes, if we'd had even a Murphy to bring on for some extra pace, like any of those sorts of players that could have come on and given it a whirl, given it
Just
a
made
little bit more
of a positive contribution to what the guys we brought on.
You're not going to get that from Dan Burn. You're kind of losing one of your offensive fullbacks by bringing Dan Burn on. And bless him, he tried. He bombed for it a few times, but it was one of those things where Fabian Schär probably at fault for the winner, because he's gone on one of his mazy runs. Yeah.
You can't hide behind the fact that him out of position, screwed everything. But on the other hand, you have to say, well, that's obviously the instruction to go and attack and attack and attack. So he's not being some kind of renegade and going off in a tangent. It was a clear instruction that's what they needed to do. And unfortunately, like we said, you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
Yeah, we've benefited from his mazy runs forward, haven't? Yeah. Look, I mean, we were given zero chance of even getting a point from that group by some people. When the group was first drawn, everyone basically had us down to finish last in the group. And look, we have finished last in the group. Can't complain at that. But we've pushed it right until the last game, literally within the last minutes of the last game. We were still in with a shout of qualifying through to a European competition of some description after Christmas. So, look, you can't fault the players, you can't fault the attitude, you can't fault the results. We've been horrendously unlucky, and the ref in the PSG game has effectively robbed us, because if we hadn't got that dodgy penalty in the 25 minutes of extra time in the second half, then we would have been through. We would have still gone through. We would have gone through on goal difference. So that's the difference. We've been screwed over in one game blatantly. We've missed chances in other games. We could have still qualified. We've been in this competition for the entire thing, and I think it'll do our players the world of good, because a lot of them, this is their first foray into Champions League football. So it's only got to be a learning
football,
curve.
really. Yeah. So just when you're talking about the sort of standings there and stuff like that, so one win out of our 6 games, is that overs? Is it par? Have we underachieved? Like, I was sort of stewing on this a bit today. It's impossible to know. It's nearly an impossible answer, because one win in 6 games in the Champions League doesn't look great, but we've drew at the San Siro. We probably should have got something out of this game. We definitely should have got something out of the PSG game in terms of another win. Dortmund, I don't think we're at the races for either of them games. So on the surface, it doesn't look great, but it's really hard to, I guess, put a score out of 10 on, because there's so many mitigating factors over the whole thing.
If you look at it, you've got PSG, who up until this season potentially have been pushing hard to win the Champions League. That was their goal. They've spent, £500 million or something on 3 players in the last few years. You've got like Dortmund are a good side that, everyone was getting a bit carried away with themselves early doors because they were not having a great start in the Bundesliga, but they're a good team. They always have been, always will be, because they've got that good setup. They've got a good club setup. And that was probably the only team that we didn't really show up to. It was like the Dortmund games, we were pretty much outclassed in both of them. We more than held our own against AC Milan, I thought, and then we probably dominated PSG in the first game, and probably should have won the second game as well. So
it's impossible to sort of rate
and
it.
AC Milan made the semi-finals of the Champions League last season.
Yeah.
So from that point of view alone, I don't think you can really say that one win in that group is necessarily a bad thing. I think we've still played well. And look, and we all know that Man United's imploding at the moment, but we've beaten their points total in their group, and they had a hell of a lot easier games than what we've had.
Yeah. But we didn't break the records like them, so albeit the record was the most goals conceded from an English team, but that doesn't matter. We still can't be record breakers. All right, let's start to turn the wheel a bit here, Mark. We've sort of got the shit stuff out of the way. Looking forward, okay, how do we improve from here? So, do we need better players, or is it the fact that when we get the ones who we didn't have available back in, that could be enough for us to sort of start taking the next steps in this odyssey of our new ownership and the club going forward?
The players we've been missing, I definitely think are a mitigating factor in our recent poor form. So getting the likes of Barnes, Murphy, Botman, we're missing Pope, exactly.
Tonali.
Yeah. Tonali, we've missing all of this quality that should be on the pitch and should be at Eddie Howe's disposal to not only just to freshen up legs, and I think that's been a big focus of most of the discussions is just tired legs and rotating the squad. But Eddie Howe hasn't got the flexibility to do tactical changes either, because he doesn't have the players available at the moment to tactically switch things up. So, look, if you look at it, I don't think Isak's probably 100% fit at the moment. He doesn't look like as sharp as he probably has done in the past. You've now got, Botman is the rock at the back of our defense, and we've been missing him quite badly. Pope's now out as well, so we're doing without our shot-stopping sweeper keeper. So yes, players coming back will make a difference. I've seen something raised on social media and probably just in general with a few people, and speaking with my dad as well. Even he was suggesting we're missing that little spark at the moment. We're not scoring enough goals from midfield. So another goal scoring midfielder would definitely be on the agenda for me. But just somebody with a little bit of spark to make something happen and win those games by a little bit of brilliance. We just don't quite have that at the moment. And we've seen it from some of our players in the past, but for some reason, whatever, being out of form, we don't know, but we're not getting that little bit of break that we would normally want to be able to break teams down at the moment. And I've literally said this today on social media when people have been complaining about stuff. We've seen this last season where we had chances and we were dominating teams at times and just failing to just click in that final third. Just we couldn't score that goal to unlock them or really bury a game. And we're kind of going through a similar phase at the moment where we're still creating chances, but we're not taking them. You go no further than Tottenham. We could have been 2-0 up against Spurs at the weekend. And unfortunately we couldn't bury our chances, and then they took theirs and ran away with the game. I think the lack of squad depth.
You could even say Almiron in the first half. Like
Almiron could have scored in the first half.
He uses his right foot, and she's probably curtains.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't even need to do anything. He just needs to stick his right foot out. The ball will hit it and bounce
it'll
in.
Go that way. Yeah.
And he's tried to kind of fashion a chance for himself and miss the opportunity. But look, I mean, we've hit the bar. I mean, Bruno's
that was a great save as well.
Yeah, and the keeper's made some good saves for them. So again,
he was really impressive, actually.
Yeah. there's fine margins in these games at this level, and you know, we've benefited from those margins in some of our games, and at the moment we're on a bit of a roll where things are not falling our way, and you've got to kind of work through that. At the moment, it's the fact that we haven't got those players to bring on for the people that are maybe a little bit out of form.
Yeah, and I don't want to. This might sound too simplistic, and maybe it is, but you can't seriously judge this team over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Like,
No.
it's impossible. And for everyone to say, "Oh, they can't be tired," like I've never, I've supported this club my whole life, and sort of interned the Premier League, and a couple of years I supported the Championship as well, and I've never seen an injury list like this ever for any club, never mind ours. And coupled with the fact with the schedule and everything like that, it's totally unprecedented. And I don't think it's fair that you can point to players like, "Yeah, oh, he should have done." Like, these blokes are dead set fingered. Like, they're not training. Literally, they'll play, recover. They might have a light run around with maybe a bit of few light walkthroughs tactically and stuff like that. They're playing. When sometimes it's travel and play. It's unbelievable, and it's just too hard, I think, to judge anything Newcastle United in the current climate because of these injuries. Because it's totally unfair on the, I guess, 10 or 11 blokes who have played nearly every minute of every game of the last 6. That
But
shit's going to happen. Like, they're going to get tired and they're going to make mistakes mentally and everything like that. I didn't hear it. I only heard a snippet of Dan Burn on a podcast. I'm not sure if it was the end of last week or the start of this week, talking about how hard he found it mentally to get up, like Premier League and then a Champions League game and then another Premier League. He goes, I don't know how these top guys do it, because he was really struggling with it. And so if he's struggling with it, well, you think a lot of other players are going to be struggling with it as well, but they don't have the luxury to just sit on the bench for an hour and come on for half an hour. Like, they're on all the time. It's seriously impossible to judge this team right now.
Well, the other thing is, it's like you've got teams in Europe, like say PSG or like Dortmund, who's, and I think I made this point a couple of podcasts ago, when you look at the leagues that they're in, they don't have those tough games every single week. There will be games in the Bundesliga, there will be games in the French league that, you know, these sorts of teams can probably put out like a weakened side and still get a result from.
Yeah.
You can't do that in the Premier League. You just literally cannot rest your best players, especially when we've got the injuries we have. You can't put those, you know, we'll put a couple of academy players in and see how they go, because you'll just get hammered, because it is a tough league. It's the toughest league in the world, and it's the best league in the world for a reason. Do you feel, though, that the points you've made, like, for me, there's an issue with Eddie Howe and his tactics and being able to prepare properly for these games as well, because he's not going to have the time to prepare them properly.
Yeah. Well, you don't have a plan B either. So, look, there's some people that have said, and like these whoppers, I don't know if they're just looking for clout on social media or what, but like, Eddie's got no plan B. Well, what's plan B? What, bring on these 17-year-olds who have never played a game before? Like, and then I think Jack and Dimmy touched on this on the weekend as well. Like, when they say, "Oh, we've got like Lewis Hall on the bench." Well, nearly every game, the game's been up for grabs. So there's never been a game apart from the Chelsea one when they did bring on them kids towards the end for the last kind of 10, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. But all the other games have been within a goal.
Yeah.
So why would you risk, I guess, losing the game, bringing on inferior players, like, and no offense to Lewis Hall, but where he is in his career compared to where Kieran Trippier and Tino Livramento are, he's not quite at that level yet. So I don't understand why you'd risk it. And you're definitely not, in that same breath, you're not going to bring on a Matt Ritchie or Emil Kraft or Paul Dummett for that matter as well, because they're all fullbacks. Like, they're all playing in the same spot. Like, I don't know what he's meant to do. The only thing you could sort of question was maybe he should have brought on another 2 keepers against PSG for the injury time. Like, once the 8 minutes went up, maybe bring on Karius and Dubravka as well. But apart from that, I don't think you can change it.
The,
Like, and
the,
hindsight's a
the
wonderful
options
thing,
just
but
aren't there. Yeah. The
no,
options just
like
aren't there.
I can't understand anyone. You could be critical, like I said earlier, you could be critical of the decision to go for the throat and stay in the Champions League, risking losing everything. So you can definitely question that. But in terms of lineups and subs and all that, like if you think you know more than Eddie Howe, you're off your head. Like it just makes no sense to me at all. But
Yeah. Look, I'm happy. I'm happy for questions to be asked, but they've got to be
yeah, but
asked in the right way. It's got to be in context. And look, to be honest with you, I think from what I've seen on social media, there's this overwhelming support for the manager, the players, the club, the job that they've done. There's a lot of defending of the players and sort of downplaying all of these negative comments and things. I think Jack said this before, where there seems to be this trend where we feel it's a bigger issue and it's getting more criticism because everyone reacts to one or two posts because people are either, they're looking for attention, or they're
yeah,
literally
just
just
want a bit of
winding
clout
people
or
up.
something like
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Or it is literally like a Macam in disguise, and they're just
yeah,
saying stuff for the shits and giggles. But then everyone jumps on that and everyone's supporting it, and it makes it seem like a much bigger deal than what it actually is. And I think the criticism that is being leveled at a lot of the players and a lot of the manager and the staff and all of that at the moment, I feel it is being blown out of proportion by the people willing to back the players and back the manager.
yeah,
So it is worthwhile always keeping that sort of perspective in mind. A lot of the time, it's very reactionary as well. And we've had to put Dimi and Lee in timeout today because they were a little bit upset this morning over the results anyway. So
a bit too spicy for me at about
yes,
9:15 in the morning.
yeah, so it is, and you get that instant reaction on social media as well, and people will
Yeah,
quite often go over the top because the emotions are running high, and it is what
yeah,
it is. But for the most part, I think everyone sees the job they're doing, sees the long-term project, and sees what is potential for this club with the young players coming through, the leadership group that we've got, the new sponsorship deals coming in. And look,
and
we're sitting in 7th spot in the league without all these injury worries and supposedly bad form. We've got 2 cup competitions that we're still in for domestic. We're in the semi-final. Is it quarterfinals of the League
quarterfinal.
Cup?
Yeah,
So if we manage to beat Chelsea, okay, yes, our away form has been questionable of late. So it'll be interesting to see how we do down there at Stamford Bridge. But if we can beat them, then we're in semi-finals of another cup. It's not all doom and gloom that some people seem to want to paint it out to be.
nah, and you brought up a really interesting point there when you said about the social media and hot takes and sort of reactionary, clicky things and stuff like that. I thought immediately after the game, the fans, the 50,000 of them that stayed till the final whistle, kind of summed everyone up with the chanting and cheering of the players, and really appreciative, I guess, of the efforts and what they've done, not just during the game, but for the whole Champions League journey and things like that. And I think the people in the crowd, it sometimes can be a really good sort of compass of what things are actually really like, rather, because they're not there for clout, they're not there for clicks and likes and content and all that sort of stuff. They're there, like they're genuine. They're there to watch the game and support the players, or do whatever you want to the players, depending on the
Yeah.
performances. But I think that was a really telling thing after the game. But let's keep turning this wheel around to the positive, mate. Lewis Miley,
Yeah. What a
what the
player.
hell, mate?
What a
What the
player.
hell?
Summed up this morning with Jack, I think, is like, yeah, I think it's pretty much time that we stop worrying about actually getting behind this player and getting excited about him. He just looks the real deal. Like, it's not just that he's coming on at 17 and he's playing games and he's doing enough just to kind of keep his place in the side because everyone's injured.
There's
There's
no one
genuine
else.
talk.
No,
There's
no.
genuine talk now where Longstaff's back in the equation, and It's hard to see where you drop Lewis Miley beyond protecting him because his body's still young and still developing. I mean, in terms of his performances, he's just different level. He's so calm, collected for the age he is, for him to have such composure. And you can see now as well, it's like he's starting to have these little sort of like back heel flicks and sort of fake shots, and for his assist today for Joe Linton, you just couldn't want any calmer head on a 17-year-old kid to just fake a shot, pass the ball off that results in a top bins goal. And
very similar to his composure for Isak's goal as well, where just a 17-year-old on the edge of the box in front of 52,000 of his home fans, it'd be very, very easy to pull the trigger on it and see what happens, especially when you've never scored before. But just like you said, his composure, and I think it's the most sort of obvious thing but underrated thing is he just does the basics really well. And he doesn't try and do things he can't do. He'll get the ball, he'll give it to a teammate. His work off the ball is really impressive as well, especially in possession with some of the runs he makes to open up space for other people and things like that. And for 17, like, no one would have thought he'd be playing this year. Like, there were calls to go out on loan, and we kind of went, well, no, he's 17. Like, I think he'd be a lot better having a full season with us and training and sort of maybe getting himself up to another level and then potentially going out on loan next year, kind of like Elliot Anderson did, I guess, in a way. But the way he's come in the last 5 or 6 games now that he's started and played pretty much every minute against some absolutely supreme teams like Man United, and I'm not sure if I don't think he got the Chelsea game, but like Paris Saint-Germain, AC Milan, like, it's crazy. Like, it's crazy. And he looks like his head's firmly screwed on his shoulders. He's not ruffled. He doesn't kind of put himself overtly out there. He just likes to get in and get the job done. And I think a lot of people said he's the type of player that Eddie Howe loves, and I think Eddie kind of said that he really likes him as well, and you can see why. Like, it's so obvious. And
it's worth saying he is now the youngest assist maker
that's
from an English team in the Champions League.
Yes.
Beat Theo Walcott.
Yeah. And I can't. I'm trying to think like of a comparison to compare him to in terms of a modern day established player, but he just makes things tick, doesn't he? He doesn't, like I said, he's not fancy. He's just there all the time, and he's not blessed with speed or anything like that. He's just, and I think as well, what definitely goes under the radar is his physicality. Like, he's playing against these top teams, against some absolutely incredible international players, and playing Premier League, like probably one of the most physical leagues in the world. And he's 17 and has not looked out of place, never looked intimidated, overwrought, or nothing. Like, it's actually incredible.
Yeah, he's just not flustered by anything. I mean, to be honest with you, it's interesting where you're saying it's like, oh, well, who do you compare him to? Because I've kind of been struggling to put my finger on exactly what his role and what his kind of like niche area in the team would be, because he's not really playing as like a holding midfielder. He's not playing as an attacking midfielder. He just does this kind of like box to box wherever he's needed to slot in, just sits there, does what he needs to do. He's not kind of trying to take players on that he doesn't need to. He's just solid. He's just this solid central midfield player.
He just does. He's like a 7 out of 10 every week, and he's 17. Like, put him down. You know what you're going to get. No secrets. He'll never give you he might later on, but he won't give you a 10, but he'll never give you a 3. He just gets there, gets the job done. So, last thing, mate, give us something positive we can finish this pod with.
I'm looking to the Fulham game, and I'm looking to the Cups. For me, if we can pull out a good result against Fulham this weekend, that kind of underlines all of the bad stuff. We're back on track. Let's get 3 points on the board. But look, the future's bright. I mean, it is a bit doom and gloom when you lose a game, and I'm never going to tell other fans. Well, I do, but I shouldn't tell other fans how to fan. It's difficult when people are being overtly negative, when they're losing perspective about how much we have achieved, what we are working towards. And I think that's the big positive for us at the moment, is just how well we're playing with a depleted squad, but how much young talent that we've got coming through, and what good a job the owners are doing of building us up into a team that can sustain this pressure, sustain this level of football long term. And you look at the core that they're building, you look at the young players that are coming in. Quite interesting. Minte scored again for Feyenoord in the Champions League against Celtic. So we've got another potential good player coming back in there. That'll give some extra depth and some extra competition for spots. We've got a fantastic new sponsorship deal. We've got owners that want us to be as competitive as we can in all competitions. They want us to take over, not just to compete. So, there's plenty of positives. It's hard to take these losses, and especially, as you said before, the way that it happened. But the future is definitely bright, and we need to keep on the positive side about what the future does hold for us, I think.
Yeah, 100%. So for me, I guess something positive to take forward is, in a weird way, we'll never be this bad again with regards to our injury. Like, these injuries will never happen, and they're unlucky injuries. Like, they're not hamstrings and calves and groins and things like that. Like, they're shoulders and backs and feet. Like, it's just so bizarre and uncanny and unprecedented. So the positive is that we're starting to get them back. So obviously Longy and Byrne on the bench for last night. Wilson back, 90 minutes under his belt. Hopefully that means Isak might start on the weekend, and Wilson back off the bench again with maybe reversed and things like that. But it's great we can start rotating them. Hopefully Anderson and Barnes, we're only a week or two away as well, which will be another two blokes back in positions that we really need to change as well. Botman, I'm not sure. They've been very coy with the knee injury. I'm not sure if they're being coy or they just don't actually know. So that's why there's been no updates. It's a bit of a wait and see and things like that. But I think with the players coming back and our schedule kind of easing a little bit, I think there's a lot of positive things to happen in the near future. I mean, like, the sponsorships and all the Adidas gear that we're going to get next year is going to be unreal. My missus is going to kill me with the amount of money I'm probably going to spend on all the training kits and stuff like that. But in the immediate future, the players coming back, and I think we might have a little bit of work to do in January. So that's always exciting for new players. And then hopefully we can kind of get through this tough 2 or 3 weeks and then get some bodies back in and give 2024 an absolute smashing, because I've got a feeling once we're up and running with players, and I know it was only one game, that Villa game, but when we had everyone playing and available, we were frightening. So hopefully, like I said, in 2 or 3 weeks, we get a lot of these bodies back in and we can start sort of rotating and being what we were, I guess, towards the end of last year, was just intensity is our identity. So that'll do us, mate. Thanks very much for jumping on a tough day. We shouldn't sugarcoat it. It's been one of the probably toughest days we've had in recent memory. I'm just as flat about this result as probably what I was in the cup final as well. So we can't do anything about it now, mate. The game's over. Control what we can control, which is our attitude. So let's be really good with our attitude and show some gratitude, and look forward to the weekend. Hopefully, like you said, against Fulham, we can come out all guns blazing, get a great result, and kind of get our campaign back on track again. So we'll be back. I don't even know when the game is. Is it Saturday or Sunday? I don't even know.
Let me just double check. It is on Sunday our time, so it'll be Saturday lunchtime kickoff.
Yeah, so we'll be back. I guess Sunday night,
3 p.m. kickoff on Saturday.
Oh, a traditional.
Yeah.
What is this traditional stuff we're doing? We don't do traditional anymore. We need an inquiry about this. What a joke. So, yeah, we'll be back. So Sunday night for our review of the Fulham game, and with Sunday morning for our UK fans, and check your local guides wherever else you live to see what time that'll drop. But thanks very much, Mark. It's been hard. I'm not going to lie. I hate talking about losses, especially really shit ones like this. So glad
Never
it's done
easy.
now. Yeah, and we'll never have to talk about this game again on a podcast.
No, it's never easy talking about loss of this sort of size, but yeah, sharing's caring, and
That's
helps
it.
you work through it a bit, I guess.
Don't get bitter, get better. All right. We'll see you all next time.
Take it easy, mate.